The moment everything snapped, I mean, you have to remember this date.
Oh.
Because last night, the President of the United States signed an executive action that it didn't just change a policy, it completely, fundamentally just blew up the future of American immigration.
It did, and it was all done with a single stroke of a pen. We're talking about an action that was so fast, so aggressive, it instantly froze all movement from nearly 24 countries. And the legal tool they used is really the key here. It's Section 212 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. We'll get into that. But the speed, the speed is what sent everyone scrambling.
Right.
This wasn't just some press release. This was a total, immediate, systemic shutdown.
Zero warning.
Yeah.
Nothing. No leaks to the press, no slow rollout for the agencies to prepare. Just bang, 19 nations, instantly, their migration pipelines just shut off. Visas gone, revoked overnight, asylum hearings paused. The entire humanitarian entry system just ground to a screaming halt.
And you have to understand, this wasn't happening in a vacuum. It wasn't some abstract political decision. This was a direct response, a gut-level response to that horrifying flashpoint in D.C.
The attack.
The brutal attack on those 2 National Guardsmen. You cannot overstate the emotional impact of that right in the heart of the Capitol.
That was the moment.
Yeah.
That was the pivotal moment. Because when the details started coming out, when we learned that the suspect, the person who did this, should never have been in the country in the first place by any existing standard, that was it.
The point of no return.
Exactly. We're hearing from sources inside the White House that the feeling was just immediate. American patience just evaporated. The excuses for this broken system, they just ran out.
And the facts are just staggering. One move by the president, and suddenly it's the only thing on the news, from Washington to Brussels, all the way to Beijing. And we need to be really clear here. This isn't just tweaking a policy.
No.
According to the internal memos we've seen, this is being called the largest operational immigration freeze in modern American history.
It's so much bigger than policy. This is the turning point. This is the moment the administration decided, and our sources confirm this, that the era of America owing the world unlimited entry was over. Stay with us. We are going to expose the full truth, the exact legal tool the White House used, why so many young Americans are surprisingly okay with this, and what this structural reset actually means for your job and your future. If you want the news they don't want you to hear, hit that subscribe button right now.
Okay, let's just try to process this. The United States you woke up in this morning. It's a different country, operationally, than the one you went to sleep in. The level of raw power used here, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
Well, it feels unbelievable because for decades we've been conditioned to think that immigration policy has to crawl through Congress.
Right, through endless debates and court fights.
Exactly, or, slow-moving legal challenges. This it bypasses all of that. This was the president using raw executive authority in real time. Wait, hold on. We have to stop there because the scope of that authority is it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
You mentioned Section 212. For anyone just catching up, what is that? What is this legal mechanism that lets a president do something this huge?
So that's the legal bedrock for this entire operation, Section 212 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. It gives the president the power to suspend the entry of any non-citizen or any class of them if he decides their entry would be, and I'm quoting, detrimental to the interests of the United States.
Detrimental to the interests. That sounds incredibly broad.
It is. Historically, it's been used for pretty targeted things, like barring a few specific human rights abusers or something. But this administration, they used it to execute a massive system-wide shutdown, 19 nations and multiple visa classes all at once.
19 nations just gone. The scale is why world leaders were, grabbing their phones in the middle of the night. So, of course, the critics are screaming authoritarian overreach because there was no court review before it happened.
How is the administration defending this? Their defense has 2 main pillars. First, they're pointing back to the travel ban lawsuits from 2017.
Right.
Back then, the Supreme Court basically affirmed that the president has very broad authority under 212, especially when you tie it to national security.
And the second pillar?
The second is that they're arguing the entire security landscape has changed, that the DC attack was the ultimate proof that the old targeted approach just doesn't work anymore. They're saying the system itself has vulnerabilities that require a systemic solution, not a piecemeal one.
So let's get specific. What does this operational lockout actually mean for those 19 countries?
Yeah.
The ones they flagged as high risk or unstable. It's not just about stopping flights, is it?
Oh, not at all. This is fundamentally different from what we saw in 2017. That was mostly about restricting travel and issuing visas.
Yeah.
This is a full-scale operational freeze on every single pipeline connected to those nations.
Every pipeline.
Every single one. The system was, in effect, deliberately broken to stop all movement.
So what does that look like on the ground? A full-scale operational freeze.
Okay, so we're talking about an immediate halt to everything. Green card processing,
Right.
which is for permanent residency, stopped instantly for anyone from those countries.
Wow.
Family-based petitions, the ones people wait years and years for, suspended indefinitely. And this is a big one. Special immigrant visas, or SIVs.
The SIVs.
Yeah.
Those are for the interpreters, the local staff who helped U.S. troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, people who put their lives on the line.
That's right. And even those were paused immediately. The justification was that they had to completely overhaul the vetting procedures.
But pausing SIVs, that has immediate life or death consequences for people who worked for our government.
Right.
That's a huge trade-off.
It is. It's a massive trade-off. And the administration knows it's being criticized for it, but sources are saying the security risk, the risk from bad identity verification in those conflict zones, it outweighs the immediate moral duty, at least until they can guarantee the vetting is secure.
And it got even more chaotic than that.
Oh yeah, the operational chaos was instantaneous. We're hearing that federal servers that process these applications just went dark for those categories. Consulates overseas were told, lock your doors to these applicants.
Unbelievable.
We even have reports of airlines getting automatic denial codes for passengers from those countries mid-flight.
Mid-flight. So a plane has to turn around.
Turn around or get grounded. That level of real-time remote control over global travel, it's something you'd only expect to see in a major war.
And it shows how much planning must have gone into this. It wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment decision.
Exactly. Even cases that were already approved. I'm talking about families who thought they were set, doctors ready to move here. All of them got pushed back into review. The world learned in a single night that the old system was gone. The White House is calling this a structural reset. They're signaling that this is not a repair job. They're rebuilding from the foundation up.
That phrase structural reset,
Yeah.
is that just politics, a soundbite?
Yeah.
Or is there a real philosophical shift happening here?
It's the core of their entire justification. It's an admission that, in their view, the immigration system we had was built to be vulnerable. It was permissive by design. The message now is that the United States will decide who comes in, and that decision will be based only on our national interest.
Not on pressure from other countries or NGOs.
Not on external pressure, not on global NGOs, and not on humanitarian loopholes that can be easily exploited. For the first time in a very long time, America is setting the terms unilaterally. The argument is that the old system simply wasn't built to keep its own citizens safe.
Which brings us right to the asylum system. Because the administration's allies are saying that was the weakest point. That was the system that let the suspect in the DC attack get into the country in the first place.
It does, and that suggests a deep sense of betrayal of what asylum is supposed to mean, which is protection for people in real, verifiable danger.
This is where it gets really heated. The sources we have say the administration believes the asylum system wasn't just flawed, it was catastrophically compromised. The attack was just the final straw that broke the national consensus that we could just absorb wave after wave of people without any real consequences.
I heard the president's message to his staff after the attack was brutally simple.
What was it?
Just 3 words: shut it down.
Shut it down. Wow.
And that became the operational directive for the Department of Homeland Security. You have to remember, intelligence agencies have been warning for a while about these systemic vulnerabilities, especially pathways that let people in temporarily without confirming who they really were. The DC attack was seen as the ultimate proof that the public was demanding protection over process.
So let's talk about the most controversial piece of this, the asylum shutdown. This wasn't just a slowdown. What does a full pause on adjudications nationwide actually mean for the hundreds of thousands of people already in that system?
It means the entire system is a locked vault, for the foreseeable future at least. Court dates are frozen, new applications, they're just being shelved. Requests for work permits, which is a huge incentive for people to come, are halted.
But what about the people already here, waiting?
That's the biggest operational piece. Every single pending case. It doesn't matter how long you've been waiting or how far along you are. Every case is being sent back for re-vetting under brand new, much stricter national security rules.
So let me get this straight. You could have entered legally, followed all the rules, been living here for 2 years waiting for your final hearing, and now you're back at square one. And you're being judged by criteria that didn't even exist last week.
That is the direct implication, yes. And the administration's justification for this is that the old system was, quote, abused beyond recognition. They point specifically to what they call loopholes created under the previous administration.
What are these loopholes they're talking about? Let's try to define them without the political spin.
They're mainly talking about two things. First is the massive expansion of humanitarian parole. This lets non-citizens enter the U.S. temporarily without a visa, often to relieve pressure at the border. The current administration argues this became a huge, loosely vetted backdoor into the country.
Okay, that's one. What's the other?
The second is changes to the credible fear standard in the initial asylum screenings. Critics say the standard was lowered so much that almost anyone could pass that first check, get a work permit for years while they waited for a court date, and then
disappear before their hearing.
Exactly. Disappear before ever showing up for their final asylum or deportation hearing. They've called this whole thing the largest exploitation of humanitarian policy in U.S. history.
That's some pretty strong inflammatory language.
It is, but that's the language they use to sell the necessity of this action. Their argument is that asylum had become a revolving door for exploitation, and until new, secure rules are in place, it has to stop. They insist it's about restoring order and security, not ending compassion.
But this security review, it goes way beyond just new asylum seekers. It's affecting people who are already living here.
That's the trade-off. It's a sweeping review across all immigration categories. We already talked about the SIVs being frozen, but it's broader than that. We're hearing the administration is revoking visas for people already in the U.S. if new intelligence flags them as a potential risk.
Even if they pass the old, less stringent checks.
Especially if they pass the old checks. That's the whole point.
That creates so much instability. You have families, communities, businesses. If the government suddenly decides the old vetting wasn't good enough and starts pulling back approvals, you get instant chaos for people who have built their lives here.
You do. And it signals a major shift in philosophy. America's safety, according to this White House, will no longer be compromised by broken systems or by trusting foreign documents. The policy is now security first, period. The message is simple. Every single person has to pass this new, higher bar. And revetting everyone, as disruptive as it is, shows just how little faith they have in decades of previous screening.
I have to say, when I look at the sheer scale of this, freezing servers, locking consulates, pausing millions of cases, it just feels like chaos. It feels like they're ripping the engine out of a plane in the middle of a flight. So I have to ask, is this strategic? Or is this just panic? Does this level of disruption risk real damage to America's reputation and our relationships? Is this just improvisation, or is there an actual blueprint here?
And that is the absolute core question of this whole situation. Chaos or choreography? And from everything we're seeing in internal memos and from our sources, the administration is insisting it's choreography. The DC attack gave them the political cover they needed, but the plan itself, it was layered, it was methodical, it was designed to take the entire system offline, rewire it, and then rebuild it with one thing at its core, the national interest.
Okay, so if there's a blueprint, let's see it. What is this layered, methodical strategy they're supposedly executing?
It's a 5-step strategic plan. It's actually pretty straightforward in its logic. Freeze, review, revet, rebuild, and replace.
Okay, break that down for me. Step 1, freeze.
Step 1, freeze. This was the immediate action. The goal was simple. Stop any new vulnerabilities from getting into the system. That's why they shut down the 19 nations overnight and paused asylum using 212F. Operationally, it's about sealing the border, not just physically, but systemically, so the system couldn't be exploited anymore while they were examining it.
So step 1 is basically damage control. Hit the emergency brakes, stop the bleeding, and deal with the international fallout later. What's step 2?
Step 2 is review. This is a massive top-to-bottom audit of everything. They're trying to expose every single pathway and loophole. And it's not just asylum. They're looking at student visas from certain countries, low-skill work visas, the humanitarian parole system we talked about, everything that for years let people in without the kind of strict identity verification they're demanding now.
So it's like a forensic investigation of the whole government.
In a way, yes. They're trying to find every single point of failure that led to what they're calling decades of open border drift.
Which brings us to the most disruptive part. Step 3, revet.
Step 3 is revet. This is applying that new security-first criteria to every single person in the pipeline, which we talked about. It's about using today's security threats as the standard, not some outdated political agreement. And this is why agencies like DHS and the State Department are in a mad scramble right now. It takes a huge amount of resources to go back and recheck millions of files. Critics say it's impossible to do it right without it taking years.
So they're betting that the political pain of this short-term chaos is worth the long-term gain of a totally secure system.
Okay, so you've frozen the system, you've found the leaks, you've rechecked everyone in line. How do you start building something new? That must be step 4.
Step 4 is rebuild. This is about writing a totally new legal and regulatory framework. And the key principle is that it serves American citizens first, period. Before any foreign country's expectations or, abstract global pressures, they want to draft new laws and rules that are designed to eliminate all the ambiguity and the loopholes of the old system.
So it's built intentionally, not just cobbled together politically over time. That's the key distinction. They want a system that's durable, one that can survive future presidents and court challenges. And that leads to the final long-term goal. Step 5.
Step 5.
Replace. Step 5 is replace. This is the aspirational part. It's where you substitute all the failed policies with targeted, high-skill, assimilation-focused pathways. This is the part meant to win over the public. Instead of mass, low-skill migration, the new system would prioritize people who can contribute right away, who can assimilate, and who fill a specific economic need. Basically, a merit-based system like you see in Canada or Australia.
So the whole bet is that the American public will support this idea of total control and a shift to merit, even if they don't like the chaos of the freeze itself. It's a detailed plan to restore order after what they see as decades of drift.
Exactly. And that choreography, that intentionality is what makes this so much more than just a temporary crisis response. It's a real attempt to permanently change the entire philosophy of who gets to come to this country.
Okay, so we see the strategy. It's about replacing these low-skill pipelines with something that serves the national economic interest, which leads to the most unexpected part of this whole story, the political and economic reaction. Because the polling that came out right after the freeze is just, it's shocking. While all the pundits were screaming and the activists were mobilizing, the American people were sending a very different message. A new poll shows 57% of likely voters support this temporary freeze. That's a political earthquake.
It's a huge earthquake, and it just shatters the standard political narrative. The support is really broad. It goes way beyond the administration's base. You have a big chunk of Democrats and a huge majority of independents on board.
So what does that tell you?
It reveals this deep underlying feeling that people are they're tired. They're tired of crime. They're tired of seeing their city services stretched to the breaking point. And maybe most of all, they're tired of being told that being compassionate means they have to sacrifice their own family's safety and economic future.
That's it. It's the collapse of that one specific idea, that self-sacrifice is some kind of moral duty of being a citizen. That narrative is just. It's failing. These poll numbers, they stunned everybody. It shows that people aren't falling for the old guilt trips anymore. They just want order. They want control.
And this huge wave of political support is tied directly to an economic rebellion that nobody was really talking about. Let's call it corporate addiction. For decades, huge corporations in farming, construction, hospitality, they have benefited massively from an endless supply of cheap, low-skilled labor.
Right.
This constant influx of people kept wages for American workers, especially those without a college degree, artificially low.
So big business used mass migration as a pressure release valve to keep wages down and profits up. Now that door is being slammed shut.
That is the explicit goal. This freeze forces American companies to face a reality they have avoided for years: rising labor costs. It forces them to invest in their own American workforce, whether that means through automation, better training, or most likely just paying people more. This is a deliberate, dramatic correction to a system that subsidized corporate profits on the backs of the American working class.
The signal couldn't be clearer. Workers first, corporate interests second, America always.
That's the realignment. This isn't just about the border. It's an aggressive economic move to try and revitalize the middle class by making low-skilled labor valuable again. If a company needs workers, they now have to compete for them by paying a wage that can actually attract and support an American family.
And here's the twist. The one that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming a year ago is the generational twist. Young Americans, Gen Z and younger millennials, are suddenly becoming some of the loudest voices against mass, low-skill migration.
It's a profound shift. And it's not about ideology. It's purely pragmatic. It's economic. They are the ones paying the highest price for all of this. They're the ones locked out of the housing market. They're the ones drowning in rent that just goes up and up and up.
They see starter homes just flying out of reach, and at the same time, they're competing directly with huge numbers of low-skilled workers for those entry-level jobs, the gig work, the service jobs that you need to get your start in life.
Exactly. The pressure is coming from both sides. Their costs are soaring because of demand, and their wages are being suppressed because of competition at the bottom. The reality of their bank accounts is hitting them a lot harder than any political ideology ever could.
For years, the assumption was that young voters were automatically pro-open borders. But when this freeze happened, a lot of them didn't protest. They actually felt a sense of relief. They feel like they've been squeezed and ignored and priced out of their own future. Yeah. So let's play this out. Let's do a hypothetical here, because this is where it gets real for people listening. If this freeze stays in place for, say, the next 5 years, what happens to the starter home market? What happens to housing affordability?
Well, logically, the pressure point completely changes. If the supply of houses stays tight, which it probably will, but you suddenly restrict the demand by halting population growth, that relentless upward pressure on rents and home prices has to ease up. It just has to.
And at the same time, if wages at the low end are forced up,
Then those same young workers are in a much stronger position to actually save for a down payment. The freeze is basically a massive national experiment. It's testing the theory that this population growth wasn't a sign of a healthy economy, but a way to mask a lack of real investment in our own people and our own infrastructure.
wow, it's a huge economic gamble.
It's a massive risk, no question. But it's a policy designed to fix wage suppression and maybe, just maybe, stabilize the cost of living for American citizens. The administration is prioritizing the stability of its current population over the abstract idea of unlimited growth.
That's the economic earthquake.
Yeah.
But there's a cultural line being drawn in the sand here, too, and it's a lot more inflammatory. The administration is now explicitly talking about immigration based on compatibility, assimilation, and contribution.
And this is where that old narrative just completely falls apart. For decades, the dominant idea, pushed by both corporate globalists and humanitarian groups, was that America had to take in anyone at any scale, that cultural fragmentation was a strength, and that the idea of assimilation was, outdated or even racist.
And while that was happening, people were watching their own neighborhoods change overnight, schools getting overcrowded, city services breaking down. So now, when the critics immediately jump to label this new focus on compatibility as racist, we have to report that for a lot of people, that word just isn't working anymore.
Our sources are telling us that supporters are making a distinction. They're separating what they see as real hatred from what they call simple self-preservation. This whole action is built on a belief that millions of people now say out loud, that America does not owe the world unlimited entry, that we have a right to set the terms based on our own cultural and economic needs.
So how do they define compatibility and assimilation in actual policy terms?
Yeah.
Because those are very loaded phrases.
They are, but they have policy goals tied to them. Sources say it means giving preference to people with things like English proficiency, a certain level of education, and a clear understanding of and respect for American law and constitutional principles. It's a shift away from family connections and a random lottery, and a move toward a system that actively selects for people who can integrate and contribute quickly.
So this cultural reset is really a defense of national interest. Proponents would say it's a necessary swing of the pendulum away from the policies that have been in place, really, since 1965.
That's the historical frame they use. They argue it's about cultural protection and asserting sovereignty. The state's primary duty, in their view, is to its existing citizens and the preservation of its core values, not to some abstract global expectation. This cultural line, America decides who joins the American family, for many of their supporters, it feels like they're finally taking their home back.
Okay, so we've laid out the shock, the legal strategy, the economic rebellion, and the cultural line in the sand.
But what's really critical for you to grasp as you're listening to this is just how big this moment is in history, this immigration freeze. It's not just another policy change. Sources are arguing this is a fundamental historical realignment.
So you're saying this isn't temporary, this isn't something that's just going to be reversed after the next election, this is a permanent structural shift.
I believe that's the intent. If our sources are right, we are watching a pendulum swing that is so massive, future historians are going to point to this week as the beginning of a new political era. For 30 years, what the administration calls the era of globalist ideology, America just drifted toward open borders and corporate labor pipelines that hurt wages.
And the idea that we had to subordinate our own interests to the rest of the world.
Exactly. And that era, the era of unquestioned globalism, is collapsing right now. The DC attack was just the catalyst that sped it up. This freeze is the first undeniable operational sign that America is entering a new chapter.
A new chapter defined by national interest.
Defined by national interest, cultural protection, economic sovereignty, and controlled borders. And the support for it isn't just coming from one leader. It's being powered by these deep economic and cultural anxieties that have been ignored for far too long.
And because it's powered by things like housing costs and wage competition, things that directly affect Gen Z, it has the potential to reshape an entire generation's political views for decades to come.
That's the big bet the administration is making, that this is the rebirth of American priority. And whether the political class likes it or not, the reset is already happening, and the consequences, for better or for worse, are going to touch every single part of American life for years.
That's the reality we're facing. But I want to know what you think. Given the detailed 5-step strategic plan, the strong political support, and the unexpected economic factors like the surprising Gen Z alignment, do you believe this migration freeze is a temporary fix driven by the immediate tragedy, or a permanent structural shift aimed at rebuilding America's economic and cultural systems from the ground up? Let us know your opinion in the comments below. We read every single one. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sophia. Thanks for listening to News Focus.